In the beginning was only being, one without a second. The self is the sun shining in the sky, the wind blowing in space, the fire ablaze in the altar, the guest dwelling in the home. That which is the subtlest of all is the self of all. That is the truth, that is the self, and thou art that. By knowing the self, all this universe is known. The self is subtler than the subtlest and greater than the greatest. As the rivers flowing east and west merge in the sea and become one with it, so do all differences merge in the self. The self is the only reality, everything else is but a passing shadow. The self is the source of all joy and all love, it is the essence of all that is good. He who knows the self knows all, he who does not know the self knows nothing. The self is not to be found by knowledge, nor by understanding, nor by much learning, it is attained only by those whom the self chooses. The self is the foundation of all, it is the support of everything. The self is pure consciousness, it is the witness of all that is. The self is the eternal Brahman, beyond time and space, beyond all limitations. The self is the Lord of all, it is the ruler of the universe. The self is the source of all power, all knowledge, all wisdom. The self is the supreme goal of all human endeavor, it is the highest good. The self is the ultimate reality, it is the ground of all being. The self is the same in all beings, it is one and indivisible. The self is the essence of all that exists, it is the very substance of the universe. The self is the light of all lights, it is the source of all illumination. The self is the supreme bliss, it is the ultimate happiness. The self is the supreme peace, it is the ultimate tranquility. The self is the highest truth, it is the ultimate reality. The self is the supreme beauty, it is the ultimate grace. The self is the eternal, unchanging, and infinite, it is the essence of all existence. The self is the source of all sound, all light, and all heat. The self is the essence of all that is sweet, all that is pure, and all that is good. The self is the eternal witness, it is the seer, the knower, and the perceiver. The self is the true friend, it is always with us, never leaving us even for a moment. The self is the supreme teacher, it is the source of all knowledge and wisdom. The self is the supreme joy, it is the ultimate happiness. The self is the supreme power, it is the source of all strength and vitality. The self is the supreme refuge, it is the shelter from all sorrows and sufferings. The self is the supreme wealth, it is the treasure beyond all measure. The self is the supreme support, it is the foundation of all existence. The self is the supreme guide, it is the light that leads us on the path of righteousness. The self is the supreme goal, it is the end of all our striving. The self is the supreme reality, it is the truth that is beyond all doubt. The self is the supreme mystery, it is the secret that is hidden in all things. The self is the supreme essence, it is the substance of all that exists.